Point is, we can't possibly understand what Olam Haba is, because just like a fish can't understand what a bird is, and a bird can't understand what a fish is, so we can't understand what Olam Haba is. Okay, so it's a relatively short daf. We're holding, where do we go? Four lines down from the right, 4 lines down from the top.
Oh, my choice.
Yes, so who Gita? There was a get, the shtak of the surah. Again, well, before that, we have to rechaz. There's a Machlokes Abaya and Rava. Right? So Abaya holds that we have to be choshed that there's another guy with the same name somewhere, and we can't validate the get or a shtar chayiv or whatever it is, even if it's an oddball name, because maybe there's a second guy like that. And Rava says no, we don't have to be choshed for that. Yeah. So then they said they're proofs from the stories, and now we're going to go through some questions. So Ahu Gita, 4 lines down. So Ahu Gita the shtach b'surah. There was a get in surah uksib bei hachi. This is what it says. B'surah masa, in the town of Surah, Anan Barchia Naharda, Anan Barchia from Naharda, Patris Visareches Ploinus Intasi. I am making potter and divorcing this my wife. And the Rabbanon checked from Surah to Narda. They didn't find another one except for Anan Barchia, who came from Chigra, who was in Narda. Right? So, but they means they found the guy. And the Adam came and said, on the day that get was written, meaning based on the date of the get, Anan Barchia Mechagro Gavonha. But this Anan Barchia from Chagro was with us, and he wasn't in Surah. So it must be that this is not the guy that wrote the get, right? Because we have Adam. We have Adam. Sorry, that's my Wi-Fi hotspot. Yeah. So it seems like there were 2 of them, and it can't be this guy that wrote it. So Amar Abaya. So Abaya says now they switch. The opinions will switch. Amar Abaya, even according to me, that I hold that you have to be choshed that there's a second guy with the same name. Here we're not going to be choshed. Why? Because the witnesses said, right, that the other Anamachia was in the Hardah. My boy Basura, what would he be doing in Surah? So since we have Adam that he wasn't around when that get was written, so therefore we're not choshed for anything. Right, that's one. Amar Rava, Afludidi, the loichashin, and me that holds that you don't have to be choshed that there's 2 guys with the same name.
Why does he have to be around? Why does he have to be around when the get's written? He told the Sefer to write a get.
Oh, so that is going to be one of the 2. That's going to be Rava's Taina. That is going to be Rava's Taina. That's going to be one of Rava's Tainas on Abaya. Let's see. Even me who holds I'm not choshish for 2. Here I am choshish. Dilma, the Gamla Pircha Azal, maybe he went on a what do you call it? The express.
What a 3-day
He went on. What do you say?
He went on.
He saw the donkey fly like Muhammad.
Right, maybe that's what it comes from. Right, he went on the flying donkey, or the donkey that goes real fast. So he was able to make it back that same day. Inami bikvitza, or he did it by jumping. Now this is, again, we had this once before. I think we had one before. He jumped from Surah to Naharda. Right? How did he jump from Surah to Naharda? So Zok Rashi around halfway down the Amud, bikvitza al yedei shem. He used the shem on Mefarish. And he jumped from Surah to Narda. Stama Yokel, who wrote a get to his wife, is using the shame to jump from one town to the other. Can you explain that to me, please? Because I don't have an explanation of this. Right? Unless back then they were really wild. Right? I mean, and then Rava's chayshid. Rava changes his din. Rava changes his din with this, right? Because of this chashash that this guy was able to jump using the shema of Mefarish, right?
So now,
That-
the din. I mean, I don't know how long is, but it should be totally different than the time. Forgetting this case, the guy used because guys travel constantly all the time. Every 2 days, guys are in different cities. It's not a
100%. Well, it's a good question. Meaning, from let's say anywhere in the United States, 100%, the guy can make it that day. But what about Australia? I guess theoretically it could happen. Theoretically, he could be there. I don't know, but that's
well. He
you'd
could.
have to-
Aaron can lend him his private jets for Australia. You could do it in 1 day. It's not a big.
I don't know if those private jets could fly that fast.
One second. Isn't Hong Kong like a 25-hour flight? Or I'm
Something
crazy.
like that. Something like that.
Rabar, mine caps out at 8 hours. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's a
that's
problem.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just
Okay.
refuel it as a casino, Aaron. That's all.
Right, that's true. Okay.
Okay, the third teretz is Inami Mili Masa. What he did was he handed over the words. That's Rabban, that's what you were saying. He gave over the permission or whatever, the shlichus, to do the get, and then it went from there. Rav is the Rav the Safri. Rav told Seifrim. Rav Huna the Safri, and Rav Huna told Seifrim. Ki isnechu b'shile. When you're in the town of Shili, ksuva b'shili. Right, that it was written in Shili, even though they made you a shliach in a different town. Avagav the Mimser and Mili behini, even though they told you to do it in Hini. Ki isnechu behini. When you're in Hini, ksuva behini, you write it behini. Avagav the Mimser and Mili b'shili, even though they made you the shliach in Shili. Right, so many you always write the town of the city where you are, even though they may have made you a shliach. So here too, Ravas chayshit that it's the same guy, right? So yeah, fine. My hava allowed the shumshi. Remember yesterday's case? We had the case of shumshimi, right? Which is the sesame seeds, where the guy gave the sesame seeds for his friend to watch, and he watched it. And he said, by the way, you came and took it back. And then they counted. It was the same exact number as he had left there. Right, so what's the din then? Who's responsible? So my havi allowed the shum shemi. What's the din of shum shemi? Rav Yemar Amar loy chashina. Rav Yemar says we're not chayshid. Right? It can't possibly be that he took it out and then it was put back. So therefore, the shomer is responsible. Rav Yemar Amar chashina. Rav Yemar says we are chayshid. Behilchas chashina. We are chayshid and the guy's not on the hook.
If the Gemara is using he used the Shem Mefarish, so I wrote down the last time over here. Maybe this fellow was the Maril Diskin, who was the super counter. He could count all the threads of the Mara's right and the leaves on the trees. So,
That's I guess that would help, right? No, I'm saying I don't. Yeah. Or the jelly beans, count how many jelly beans.
yeah, he used to win that. The Maril Diskin, when you saw on the Chalamoy trips, he would win the jelly.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you call it? Fine. Okay, so now we get into some major shalom bias, gemaras. Yeah. So katata beinu levenu. So the Mishnah says that she's normally believed to say her husband died if everything is calm. But if there's a fight, if they're fighting, then she's not believed because obviously she wants to get divorced because she's fighting with him. What's the case of a fight between him and her? Yeah. So she said to her husband, divorce me. So Gemara asks, Kulu nami amru hachi. Everybody says this. Right? Now, what exactly does that mean? Everybody says this. Yeah, so Rashi says, B'shas kasan, when they're angry, so all the women say, divorce me, which I don't understand. I don't know if that's so, I don't know if nowadays they do something like that, but women do say, you hate me, or I hate you, or these type of things, that they do, when they really don't mean it, right? They just say it, right? If a male tells you that he hates you, then that's pashut that Itaka hates you. When a woman says I hate you, all that means is that right now you're getting on my nerves. Something right. So I think that's what the Gemara is saying here. He's saying Gershay. She says to him, divorce me. Ella, so it can't be that because everybody says that. Ella by Meres Labayla Gerashtani.
Oh wow.
She said to her husband, you already divorced me. So Gemara says, "V'lehem," then she should be believed that he taka divorced him. A woman that says that my husband divorced me, she's believed. A woman is not meyes panav in front of her husband. Meaning a woman is not going to make up to go in Bezdin and say in front of Bezdin that her husband divorced her if it's not true. Right? Now already in Shulchan Aruch it seems to say that we don't even go with this klal of ein isha me'iza. Okay, so then what's the case? By meres, meaning what's the case of them fighting? By meres kirashtani b'fnei pliny upliny. She says divorced me in front. You divorced me in front of these pliny these two Adam. But Shalinu, and we asked them, and they said it's not true. It's not true. Fine. So that's what the fight is. It's an interesting case. I mean, what's the chances that a woman says he divorced me, and then in front of Adam, and the Adam say it's not true, and then she says he died. Right? I mean, that's not such rocket science to say that she's not going to be believed, right? She comes to bed and one day she says, this guy, he divorced me in front of these two Aiden. They call the Aiden and say it's not true. So the next day she comes in and says, my husband died. I mean, who would believe her? Right? Okay, my time with the Ketata. So why is it that when there's a fight and she says her husband died, she's not believed? So because she'll lie. Since she's fighting with her husband, so she's gonna lie and say that he died. So meaning, what happens to the chashash that if it's not true and then she gets remarried, then she's gonna have to get divorced from both. So here she doesn't care because since she's fighting with him, she doesn't care if she has to end up getting divorced with him. Right? We're afraid that she's not going to actually have seen him die. She's going to think, like we said yesterday's stuff, that by war she might just think that he's dead, even though he's not actually dead. So there's a big so again the first sheet, Reb Chanina is saying that we're chashed that she's going to actually lie, and Rav Simi Barashi said we're not chashed for that. We're just chashed for that she may make it up, not purposely, but she might just think it's a my benai. What's the difference between them? I'll tell me base now. The difference between them is if he starts the fight, right? If he started the fight, she's not going to be so upset at him, right? Because he started the fight. But but with the dummy though, that she might, because she's saying, oh, he must be upset at me. Okay, looks like he's dead, so okay, she's not going to look into it as much as if they were in love, right? Fine. So then they asked the same shiloh we had yesterday. Now, what about these same scenarios, but with an Eid Echad? Right? Yesterday we asked about if an Eid Echad is believed during times of war. What about an Eid Echad believed when they're in a fight? So Eid Echad b'Tatamau. So my time at Eid Echad was the reason that an Eid Echad is believed. My time at Eid Echad was Eid Echad believed something that's going to end up being revealed. He won't lie. Meaning the Eid Echad will not lie that a man died because he knows that somebody's going to find out about it eventually and he's going to be disproven. So he's not going to do that. So here too he's not going to lie. What does he care whether they're in a fight or not? He's not going to lie. And he should be believed. The reason why an Eid Echad is believed is sort of like a combination. He's believed along with the assumption that the wife, is going to look into the husband, that whether he died or not, because otherwise she's going to get messed up if he didn't die. And here, since there's a fight, she's not going to be too careful. She really doesn't like her husband anyway. So a guy comes along and says, hey, he died. She's not going to look into it too much. And she's just going to believe him and she's going to say, yeah. So Gemara answers, Gemara doesn't answer. Teku. Gemara says it's a teku. So we don't know what the din would be by an Eid Echad. Fine. So Rabbi Yehuda said, now this Gemara, the Baron, this Gemara is for you, right? I mean, this Gemara is wild here. If anybody wants to know how to ask a shaila, from this Gemara, you could mamish, whatever. You try this to a rabbi. If the rabbi doesn't throw you out on your head, right? Then you whatever. You should bench. May you bench goimel if you didn't. Rabbi Yehuda, right? So Rabbi Yehuda says she's not believing unless she comes into Bezdin with torn clothing and she's looking all messed up. She's looking tzibrochit because she lost her husband. Tanya, Amalei Rabbi Yehuda Ludvaracha. According to you, pikachas tinase shaita loy tinase. A smart lady is going to end up being able to get married, and a shaita won't. Why? Because a smart lady, if she wants Bezdin to believe her, is going to tear her clothes and make herself look sad, and then she'll get away with it. But a shaita is not going to chop this. Ella achasu v'achasu tinase. No, they both get. They're both allowed to get married. Fine. Now here's the Maisa. Here's the fascinating Maisa. This lady came to Rabbi Yehuda's Bezdin, right? And she's coming to the Bezdin, and she must have told the secretaries of the Bezdin or the Rabbanim that were hanging out there, like, what do you want? She says, I want to tell you that my husband died. So what they tell her? Amri la. So they told her, Safti balech, say a hesped on your husband, which back then really hesped meant just cry. Kari manich, tear your clothing, right? And sisri mizayich, and mess your hair, so that you'll look like you're really sad, and then Rabbi Yehuda will be mad to you, right? All this Talmud, I'm telling you, hey, you really want to get this heter? This is what you got to do in order to get that. She comes in all dressed up to go to Bezdin, and she's looking for a heter. They say, this is the way we're going to tell you how to do the heter. I mean, they're pulling the wool over their Rebbe's eyes. They're teaching a lady how to say a sheker. I mean, it's good that this is on a Friday. Yeah. So the Gemara says, "Afu shikr."
You go to the tuition committee. You go to the tuition committee that way.
maybe, right? Yeah. So the Gemara asked this question: "Afu shikr." You teaching her how to lie? So he says, "No." Inu kirabonon svirulu. Right? They really hold like the Rabbanon that you don't need to. Right? But Amri Tavet Hachi ki lishrei. But let's do it this way so we get Rabbi Yehuda. Right? You hear what's going on here? She came to Rabbi Yehuda's Bezdin. The guys know Rabbi Yehuda is going to answer her. They really hold, the rabbis, they really hold that it's mutter. So they're telling her a way to get around Rabbi Yehuda's chumrah. Right? It's wild. Can you do this? Can you do this to a Rav?
It's pretty wild, Taka.
Right? Saying if a Rav, if you know a Rav, if you ask him, you ask the Rav, can I use the Erev in Borough Park? Right? So you know the Rav will be materit in cases of tzairah. So on your way into the Rav, his Talmud comes and tells you, by the way, if you want to use the Erev in Borough Park, so tell the guy that you have a ingrown toenail. Right? And then he'll be mad to you that you need episode K. I don't know, whatever, make up any story. Yeah, and that's what the Gemara is saying that you could do. Right? Wild. It's mamish wild.
Yaakov, you're not lying about the actual din. You're lying. You're.
Either way, doesn't. I mean, because if you change the gears, it's not Rabbi Yehuda, not his best.
Well, is she lying or is she embellishing?
Right. I agree. You're not lying about the circumstances.
What? No, but you're changing this. In this case, you're changing the circumstance.
No, all you're doing is you're putting on clothing. Your husband died.
What?
She's dressing before the tuition committee a little differently that she does in back Lawrence.
People buy houses before they go through to the tuition committee, so they have no savings, right? Is that lying, or they're just the money's in the house now?
That's different. That's
embellishing.
You're
I have no money.
Here you're doing it so that the rabbi gives the heter that you want to give.
Yes.
Number 12 in the art scroll says that you're allowed to do
I know, but it's a strange thing that you're allowed to do something like that. Right. I mean, the way I understand it is that these rabbanim that she came to, really hold its mutter, but they're not going to paskin in front of Rabbi Yehuda. So because they're not going to paskin in front of Rabbi Yehuda, they did it in a way to make that Rabbi Yehuda will agree with their psak. So that all makes sense. That's fine, but not when she came to Rabbi Yehuda's Bezdin, right? Saying we do it all the time. Somebody comes and asks the shaila. I said, listen, I can't be makel because my Messiah from my Rebbeim is this. Go to this rabbi and he'll be makel to you. Right? Is that different than this? I guess it is a little different. It's a little different.
This is Yaakov putting on Esav's clothing, a sticker.
Jacob, you need to get an abortion. You ask for David Cohen, right? We want to go down that road now.
Correct, but it's but you have to answer David Cohen in the right way. You have to answer David Cohen. Yeah, I mean you have to explain to him the situation in order to get him. right? And if you know which buttons to press, and somebody tells you these are the buttons you have to press in order to get him to be makel, that's what this is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I tell that sometimes. I say, you want a heter for this and that. You got to tell me, is there mental health issues here or not? I say, if you want a heter, you tell me that there's mental health issues. Then you already have much more of a, not for me, not my psak, whatever the psak that's. All right. So you say, oh yeah, mental health. I wake up very stressed in the morning, then I have to go down. And oh, okay. I don't know. All right, whatever. Zok the Mishnah, yeah. Beis Hillel says, what?
There was when I was first working the garment center. There's a chain of stores. The guys probably know Fashion Bug or Charming Shops. And at 1.5 years ago, I had 1,000 stores. When they had 20 stores, after every Xmas season, one of the guys from the family would come up, go around the whole garment center, everybody, all the vendors. He would wear a yeshiva bacher suit with a stain on the shirt and the tie, with mamish holes in his shoes. He would come he would cross his legs and would have holes in his shoes because he wanted money back from the season. It was a bad season. They're multimillionaires. The family probably $1 billion now. They should live and do well. Whoever's left from them, it was unbelievable.
Well,
Everybody would laugh at him, but he got money back from the whole.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, his Einiglich, they're fine shape. His Einiglich.
that's funny. That's a Yiddish head right there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yiddish family.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we've had this Gemara before. This fat Gemara goes to shtickle fast. So Beis Hillel, Lo Shamanu, this that we allow the woman to be believed that her husband died. Lo Shamanu El Babamin HaKitzir, only when they're coming back from the Kitzir, how do you say it, from the harvest. Uba Isa Medina, and only in the country that the story happened to. Ukemaisa Shayim, like the Maisa Shayim. Meaning, Beis Hillel saying that the reason why we allow the woman to be believed is because of the story that happened. So Beis Hillel's shita is okay. So only in the town where that story is can there be? Can you do that? Everything else you can't do it. So Amr Lem Beis Shammai, Achas Abam in a Katsir, Achas Abam in a Zaysim, whether they come from the harvest of the grain, whether it comes from olives, and whether it comes from the grapes, Medina, and doesn't make any difference what country they go to. The Chachamim, when they said it's mutter and she's believed, they're not talking about just by the grain. It's that they happen to have said that that's the city that it happened to. And then Chazru Beis Hillel is the Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel changed their mind and said like Beis Shammai, and that's why the Mishnah before said that anywhere that this happens, a woman is believed. Right? Basically, this is like Hasidish versus Litvish. Right? Meaning Hasidim do exactly what the Rebbe tells them to do. They don't veer from it for a second. The Litvish already, in some areas, yes, some areas not. They'll change it. Right? Yeah, Mamish Stark Hasidim. The Rebbe said it to do it this way. This is why I do it. Oh, the Rebbe was 1,000 years ago. You know where this comes into play? Pesach, the people that don't eat garlic and they don't eat fish and they don't eat it. Why? Because in Europe, some yokel put some alcohol in the fish's mouth. So in Mela, they keep it for the rest of their life. They're not changing, right? So that's what Beis Hillel would hold. Beis Shammai says, just relax. We can adjust the din. We can adjust the din based on the time. So that's exactly my Machlokes here. And Beis Hillel went with Beis Shammai. Fine. So Tanya, Amrul and Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. When Beis Shammai was having this Machlokes, the Devreichem ainly ala Kitzir Chitim. But according to you, it's only if the husband died when he was doing the harvest of grain. How about barley? And how about it's only kaitzer, baitzer, maisa, gaider, eider. What these are all for figs and for grapes and for olives. Minayin. How do you know if the guy went out and did the harvest there, and the wife says he died? So according to you, he's not. She can't get remarried. She's an agula. The story happened with Katzir. And it applies to all types of things. The story happened in a specific country, and the same thing with all the other things. In that Medina where there's a lot of people going back and forth. So they were afraid that he's not going to lie because people are going to come and say, "What are you talking about, lady? Your husband is alive and well. She'll get nailed." But from one Medina to another Medina, where people are not traveling back and forth, they're not scared. That would be Beis Hillel's. There's always how do you call it? Caravans going back and forth. So that was the back and forth between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, no pun intended, and Beis Hillel changed their mind and said it could be any time that the wife says that her husband died, she's believed it. My Maisa Shoya, what was the story? Domer of Yudom Shmuel, Shilfi, right? Shilfi Kotzir Chitin Hayu, at the end of the days, when they were cutting the wheat, 10 people went out to cut the wheat. Nashchu Nachash, a snake bit one of them, Umeis, and died. And the wife came and told Bezdin. And then they sent out people to check if it's true that this guy got bit by a snake. At that time they said, a woman who says her husband died, she can get married just like that. And if my husband died, I
What
can
kind
get
of Kazaka is this? Kazaka
Yeah.
one?
I mean, from one story that they decided to be making.
There's an expression in science, one is none.
Right.
Meaning there's no Kazaka. It's just interesting, that's all.
Yeah, I think it's because of Aguna, because of the Aguna, same way they believe Eid Echad. So therefore, they believe that a wife is not going to say a lie about that with her husband.
Doctor, you learn from this Gemara. You got to know how to tell this story. You got to sell it. Okay?
Of course, we're dealing with Karas here, right?
That's true. We are dealing with, but even so, that's the way it goes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now name this we had before. Name Rav Hanania ben Akiva, Rabbanon b'plukta the Beisham v'Sil committee. Rav Hanania ben Akiva and Rabbanon are having the same machlokes in Beisham v'Sil. The Tanya lo yisa the mechatas eferchatas ve'avyin b'yardin v'sfina. A person should not take the mechatas and the eferchatas and go over the Jordan River or on a boat with the mechatas. Meaning, mechatas is the water for the chatas and the burnt ashes from the paraduma, and they have to transport it to the Beis Hamikdash. So, but don't take it over the Jordan River and don't take it on a boat. And don't stand on one side of the river and throw it onto the other side. And don't float it on the water. And you can't ride it on top of an animal, and you can't put it on his friend that was walking through the river. The only way to transport it across the river is that the guy's feet have to always be touching the ground. Man, he can't swim across and he can't jog across. The feet have to always be on the ground. But you are allowed to bring it on a bridge. If there's a bridge, then that's considered like being on the ground. And it doesn't make a difference whether it's the Jordan River or any other river. Don't bring it across rivers. That is the Tanakama. Same thing. He says, no, the only river that you're not allowed to take it over is the Yarden, and only on a boat, and like the Ma'aser Shahaya. That's it. We don't expand the story, right? So Lema Rabbanan Damri Beishamai. The Rabbanan say like Beishamai because they expand the story, right? Again, Beishamai says that it's any man at any time a woman testifies about the man, doesn't have to fit into the exact story. Rav Hanani ben Akava Damri Beis Hillel, and Rav Hanani ben Akava says like Beis Hillel. Yeah, so that Lacharitz seems to be symmetrical. Those are the Machlokes. Like Rabbanon, Anand Amri Avke Beis Hillel. The Rabbanon say we could even say like Beis Hillel because Ad can like Beis Hillel Hasam Elam Mishum de Mirsis the Makam Karav Mirsis Makam Rachak Loy Mirsis. Right. So for a Makam Karav, she's afraid. For Makam Rachak, you're not afraid. So why would you believe her? Right? Hacha Mali Yarden Mali Shanaris. What's the difference whether it's crossing the Jordan River or other rivers? If you're saying that there's a concern about crossing rivers, why should it make a difference? I even say like Bishamai where we can broaden it, even though by the Mechatas I hold you can't broaden it. Because I can't like she's going to be careful, and before she's going to get married, Mali Makam Karav, Mali Makam Rachik. If she's going to look into it to make sure her husband died, what's the difference how far away he was? But here, the whole reason why you're not allowed to bring the chatas, the mei chatas and the efer chatas, is because of a story. The Yarden and Sfina to have a maisa because of Rabbanan. In Yarden and Sfina, where the story happened, the Rabbanan made Gzeira. B'Shana Haris, other rivers, the Lo have a maisa where the story wasn't. Like Rabbanan, the Rabbanan didn't make Gzeira. Okay, so my maisa shahaya. What was the story with this mei chatas and efer chatas? Damar of Yud, Damar Rav, maisa badam shaya baver mei chatas efer chatas b'Yarden and Sfina. A person was carrying it across the boat. They found a kizayas. I guess they were transporting dead bodies before that, and there was a little piece of the dead body stuck into the bottom of the boat, and that made the whole boat tummy. So Amru, they said, because of that weird story, they made a takana that you're never allowed to carry the mechatas and evachatas across on a boat. But that's it, just specifically that story, and not the other one. Well, that's Machlokes between Rava and Rava ben Akiva. Okay, the Olam should have a good Shabbos.
You know I'm Jewish right now.
And enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
What time is you tomorrow?
What do you say?
What time is you tomorrow? Tomorrow
Yeah,
night?
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. I don't know if that works for you.
All right, I'll tune in whenever. A good Shabbos,
All right.
everyone.
Okay, good
Jago,
Shabbos.
did you get a package?
Yes, I got it. I tried it. Not bad. I'm going to try the rest of it on Shabbos.